you're also a writer. Could you share a little bit about your experience, why you come to this event?
Why I came to this event? I've been a long time fan of Ed's work, and I think that he talked about sort of how long he has been writing, and I think he was such an instrumental voice for so many of us looking for representation. So even though we're not the same kind of Asian, the idea that he was out there doing things that was kind of as wild and generous and funny as they were felt amazing.
Yeah. And what about yourself? Could you tell a little bit about your writing experience?
So my first novel was published in 2014, and then I did a graphic novel called Good Talk that came out in 2019. And right now I'm writing a mystery about a white passing Indian woman. I've been, as we're talking about, I've been at this a long time. And it feels really good when I see books like this come up, because I think it allows us as writers so many possibilities.
What inspired you in your writing, your novel?
The first one? The novel is about an Indian family in which the father is seeing things that don't exist. And actually was inspired by the passing of my dad. My dad died, and it was, and I started writing it weirdly before he passed, but then he passed in the middle of writing, and it really changed the way and the need to write it.
And what do you feel the best part about writing in your career?
The best part about writing is actually the writing. And when people said that to me before I was published, I thought, no, that's not true. It has to be going on tour, it has to be the prizes, or it has to be the acclaim or something. It's actually just being alone with your book and getting to live in a world that nobody else can access.
And writers often face some criticism from the outside. How do you handle those voices?
I tend to, I know who I'm writing for, and as long as those people feel seen and heard, I've done my job. As long as there's something that I'm breaking down for them, I've done my job. I'm not worried about the people that don't get it.
Like you cannot, like everyone.
You can't
like
please
you.
everyone, especially not if you have a strong writing voice.
That's true. Do you have any plans, like new books, new writing in the future?
Yeah, I am. I'm working on a book called We Killed Angie Alexander. It will be coming out with Echo Books. It is about the murder of a white-passing Indian actress in 2019. It's completely fictional, and it's told from all the people, the point of view of all the people who are watching the actress, but it's never told from her point of view. So it's really fun.
That sounds really interesting.
It's really fun.
Yeah. When do you plan to launch the new book?
The new book, I think, will be out either at the end of 2026 or early 2027.
Yeah. Okay, got it.
So you can look for it then.
Yeah, definitely. I'll mark it out.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, really nice to meet you too.
Imaginative and deadpan collection of short stories by Ed Park, a Pulitzer Prize finalist and Los Angeles Times Book Prize winner, who is celebrated as one of today's most insightful and imaginative writers. The author of novels Personal Days and Same Bed, Different Dreams, Ed is also a founding editor of The Believer and has worked in newspapers, book publishing, and academia. Joining Ed on stage tonight to talk about his short story collection is Mira Jacob, a professor at the New School and a founding faculty member of the MFA in Writing at Randolph College. Her works includes Good Talk, a memoir in conversation, which was shortlisted for the National Book Critics Circle Award, and the novel The Sleepwalker's Guide to Dancing. You'll have a chance to ask Ed your own questions later this evening. If you're joining us online, please send your questions via email, artsandculture@koreasociety.org. An Oral History of Atlantis and other books by Ed and Mira are available for sale here tonight, thanks to our partner for this program, You and Me Books. And now please welcome Ed Park and Mira Jacob.
Thanks, you guys, for coming. And as you just heard, you're going to be asking a few questions as we go along. So get those in your mind, just so you have something when I turn to you. But I'm so excited to be discussing this book. I think I almost asked the questions backstage because I was so excited to start this. But one of the things, and when I was reading these stories, the short stories, one of the things about your short stories, which is different than, say, like a Raymond Carver or Jabal Lahiri or Marie Helene Bertino, like the sort of experts of form, is that your stories are not, they don't belong to a specific genre. They don't have a telltale pacing, like an Alice Munro, right? The structure is always really innovative. And as I backed away from the collection, I realized that the thing that was connecting all of them, that is also running through your novel, is the kind of breadth and depth of your mind.
Oh.
And the obsession, right? Like, oh, let's not go there, Jacob.
I like it.
But the way that you have a really interesting quality, so there's kind of a sense of wonder in the stories, but it's not breathless wonder. It's not like I don't know what to say wonder. It's the kind of wonder when you're very, very curious about something, so you keep getting closer and closer and closer to it. Would you think that's fair?
I think that's fair. That's really lovely of you to say. I think you're the author of a novel, and there's something about writing is writing, and writing a graphic memoir is another kind of writing. But I guess each there's a different way. You're using words for both the long form and the short form, but with a story, I feel, I wouldn't say impatience, but I know that, there's like, you have 5 or 10, maybe 15 pages to get it all down. And so I think what happens is I write cleaner, and I just kind of like go directly into whatever, like an obsession with, a science fiction author, or just some odd fact that I have stored in my brain for a while, and it just
a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot in there, or an interesting sounding name that I overheard, or and it'll just sort of come out. And I think one thing about these stories is that there's 16 stories in the collection, and they were written over many years.
Yeah.
The first one is from before some of you were born, probably. I wrote it in '97, and a lot of the stories were like what I was writing, generally like while I was writing a novel.
Yeah.
And so these were my escape.
Oh.
Like
you'd be writing the novel and you would turn to
novel.
these?
Yeah, like novel, and then sometimes my friend Michael Miller here, editor of Book Forum, he would have these readings, and he kindly invited me several times to read, and I would be like, oh, this is my opportunity to write something. So 3 of the stories here are just like, I wrote them for these readings, and many of them are like that. They were just, nobody was telling me to do that, but just as an excuse to get away from the novel. It's like, I'll come up with something brand new. And it was also, I don't know that I've ever read like an extract from a novel in progress out loud. Because I figure like you have to explain blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Whereas with a story, you can just kind of dive right in, and hopefully, the things I'm interested in, or the tropes, and or the language or the wordplay, hopefully that's interesting enough to a listener, actually, that I can hopefully win them over. Yeah.
So that's so interesting to me. I'm so curious about turning toward the short story for the novel. But I do a follow-up question.
Yeah.
Did you then read the short stories aloud as you wrote them, especially the ones that you're talking about? You wrote them for a reading.
Yes.
Were you reading them aloud as you were writing?
I would say I would try to. Well, some of them were written so close to the wire that I didn't have time. But usually I would give it a read and kind of imagine an audience, and that's actually, I found it to be a great way to edit yourself. Like just hear it out loud. I don't know if you do that. Yeah, and so often, especially with a novel, it's like I don't want to print out this chapter for the 5th time and like read it out loud. But there's something about not having the safety of the page. Like I feel like on the page you can kind of scrawl and do whatever, weird punctuation and stuff. But if you're reading it out loud, the audience has to understand it.
Yes.
You can't kind of hide behind too much funny business. So yeah, I would try to read these aloud. There are a couple stories in here that I did write for readings, but they did not go well in the sense that I would wind up with like a 15-page story and try to read it, not realizing it's like going to be closer to a 25, 30-minute story.
Yes.
So, and the good thing is, like, I could preserve them here because on the page they read fine. But there were a couple times where that method didn't work, and I just kind of lost track of what I was doing.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I think there's also a different muscle that you sort of exercise when you're reading, right? Because there
Yes.
is so much of the work we do is so solitary, and then suddenly you're engaging.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like an actor or anything, or even a good public speaker, but I do like to. I mean, I do enjoy reading my fiction. So if I've written it out beforehand, and usually if it's funny enough, I do enjoy presenting.
Yes. Okay, so we're getting to the thing that I was wondering about, because so I found myself laughing out loud in these stories, but the kind of like the way that, when a laugh jolts out of you, like it's been pushed out of you, it's that kind of, you don't mean to be laughing, and that to me is always the sign of something that is sort of hilariously funny, but also it's a landing point, right? Like there's a way that you land in your humor. And there's a sharpness to it, and it is very ear-oriented.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm curious, because I feel like people shy away from humor a lot in the literary world. There's a way that they sort of turn away from it because there's a thought that it's unserious. I use humor a lot. You use humor a lot. Can you tell me why?
Why?
Why are you funny?
It's a good question. Partly I think it is that idea of, I don't want to harp on it too much, but like reading out loud, sometimes, I don't know if you've had the experience, like you're reading something and if you're not sure if the audience is liking it, but if it's funny and you know it's funny, or you've worked on these jokes, these punchlines, these funny names or whatever. Beginning of a story called Bring on the Dancing Horses, which I wrote, this is back from 2010. I'll show you a few pages. And I think my parents are watching the live stream, so. Bring on the Dancing Horses. When I call my parents, my mom tells me my dad is busy teaching a class on the internet. That is, the class is in a classroom, but the topic is the internet. More specifically, he's teaching seniors, that is old people, how to blog, write anonymous comments on news articles without panicking, poke their children on Facebook, and get away with not writing http://www. before every web address. I had no idea my dad liked the internet so much. Who said anything about like, my mom says. I hear her clicking away on her keyboard. My mom sells my old comic books and De La Soul singles on eBay. She doesn't know I know. Every so often I'll think about stuff I loved in my youth, and a search inevitably brings up her dealer name. I amp the bidding when it seems safe. You could say I'm looking out for her, but how is it that her 4 grown kids have neglected their parents' financial needs? I go to bed with a nagging sense of guilt that this is how I usually go to bed. My girlfriend, Tabby, reviews science fiction for a living, which just goes to show you that America is still the greatest, most useless country in the world. She went to Peterborough College in Vermont and is ABD in comparative literature at Rue University. She's been ABD ever since we met, back when I didn't know that it stood for all but dissertation. Her dissertation is about one or possibly all of these things: manservant literature, robot literature, and the literature of deception. Tabby is considerably older than me, and by considerably I mean over 10 years. I told my parents 5, but I don't think they believed me. Tabitha Grammaticus remembers not only life before the internet, but life before the affordable and relatively silent electric typewriter. It's sort of funny, right? She reads fast, writes faster. She does monthly columns for the California Science Fiction Review, Exoplanets magazine, and the website for the Northwest Airlines Frequent Flyer Book Club, which is getting a soft launch. Is there still a Northwest Airlines? I'm sure. That's how old these stories are. I didn't think it was possible for someone to read as fast as Tabby does, and for a long time I assumed she was a skimmer. But whenever I quizzed her on a novel that we both read, she knew every detail. I'd sit there with a book open and ask things like, who answers the door in the middle of chapter 7? I tried to keep up with Tabby's reviewing, but it's hard when someone's so prolific. I am not friends with many writers, mostly because that means having to read all their articles, stories, essays, books, and even poetry. They expect you to have read it all. With Tabby, I tried, I really did. Tabby's what you call a stylist. I gave up on her exoplanets column after the third one. I got stuck on the opening line. All time travel is essentially edible. So